On a cold afternoon, in early spring, the cafe near the city courthouse was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that made every clink of a spoon sound louder than it should. Outside, people hurried past with purpose, but inside, time seemed to slow down. At a small corner table sat Daniel, a single father in his late 30s. His jacket was neatly folded beside him, his posture calm but guarded. Across from him, coloring carefully inside the lines of a picture book, sat his little daughter, Lily. She hummed softly, unaware of the weight her father carried every day. Daniel had come to the cafe to wait out the hours before an important meeting. Not a business deal, not a celebration, something more personal, something unresolved. He sipped his coffee, eyes distant, lost in thought. That was when she walked in. Her name was Elena. She hesitated at the door as if unsure whether she belonged inside. Her coat was thin for the weather, her shoes worn. She scanned the room, not looking for a table, but for courage, for something solid to hold on to. She ordered the cheapest tea on the menu and took a seat near the window. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around the cup, as if the warmth alone was keeping her together. Daniel noticed her not because she wanted attention, but because she seemed invisible to everyone else. Lily looked up from her coloring book and tugged at her father's sleeve. "Daddy?" she whispered. "That lady looks sad." Daniel followed her gaze. He nodded slowly. "Sometimes people are carrying heavy things," he said gently. "You can't always see them." Minutes passed. Elena stared at her phone, then put it face down on the table. No messages, no calls. Her eyes shimmered, but she forced herself to breathe. Then, in a moment that would change all of their lives, she stood up. She walked toward Daniel's table. Daniel straightened, instinctively alert. Lily looked up, curious but unafraid. Elena stopped in front of them, hands clasped together, voice barely steady. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she said. "I know this sounds strange. You don't know me. I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice." Daniel steadied her, face not suspicion, but concern. "Go on," he said calmly. She swallowed. Can you act as my date for one day?" The cafe seemed to freeze. Elena rushed her words before she lost her nerve. "Just for one day. Just to stand beside me. I don't need anything else. I won't ask for money. I won't ask for promises." Lily's eyes widened. Daniel didn't interrupt. Elena continued, her voice cracking. "There's a family event tonight. I've been told for years that I'm nothing because I'm alone, that I failed because I don't have anyone. I just need to walk in with someone and leave with my dignity intact." Silence hung between them. Daniel leaned back slightly, not to distance himself, but to think. He glanced at Lily, then back at Elena. "You're asking a stranger," he said carefully, "to step into something personal." "I know," Elena whispered. "And I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Daniel had spent years rebuilding his life after loss. He had learned to be cautious, protective, especially with his daughter. But he had also learned something else. How much a single moment of kindness could change the direction of a life. Lily looked up at him. "Dadish," she said softly, "you always say we should help when we can." Daniel exhaled slowly. He looked at Elena again. Really looked at her not as a burden, not as a risk, but as a human being standing on the edge of breaking. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena." "I'm Daniel," he said. "And this is Lily." Lily smiled shyly and waved. Elena's shoulders relaxed just a little. Daniel tapped the table once, as if making a decision out loud. "I don't know what tonight looks like," he said, "and I won't pretend to be something I'm not. But if what you need is someone to stand beside you respectfully, honestly, I can do that." Elena's breath caught. "You would?" "For one day," Daniel said, "on one condition." She nodded quickly. "Anything. You don't owe me anything afterward," he said. "No explanations. No expectations." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means to me." Lily reached across the table and handed Elena her crayon. "You can borrow pink," she said seriously. "It's my favorite." Elena laughed through her tears. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that a simple question in a quiet cafe had just set something extraordinary in motion. What none of them knew was that this one day this single decision would uncover truths, challenge assumptions, and change everything they thought they understood about strength, family, and belonging. And it all began with a poor woman who dared to ask for dignity and a single dad who chose compassion over caution. The rest of the afternoon passed in a quiet, careful blur. Daniel insisted on walking Elena home so she could explain what the evening would involve. Lily skipped beside them, holding Daniel's hand, occasionally glancing up at Elena with open curiosity. Elena's apartment was small, tucked above a closed tailor shop. The stairwell smelled faintly of dust and old paint. Inside, the space was clean but sparsely furnished, as if she had learned how to live with only what was essential. "This is it," Elena said, almost apologetically. Daniel nodded. "It's warm." "That matters." Elena smiled faintly at his choice of words. As she prepared for the evening, Elena explained everything. The event was a formal engagement dinner hosted by her extended family. Years earlier, she had been quietly pushed aside, treated like a reminder of failure because she had never married, never settled, never fit the mold they expected. "They invited me out of obligation," she said, smoothing the fabric of a simple dress. "But they'll be watching, waiting for me to arrive alone." Daniel listened, not interrupting, not judging. "I don't need you to pretend you're someone important," Elena added quickly. "Just present.com. Kind." Daniel adjusted his jacket. "That I can do." Lily emerged from the bathroom wearing a neat cardigan Elena had lent her. She twirled once. "Do I look fancy?" "You look perfect," Elena said softly. The drive to the venue was quiet. The building rose, tall and elegant, lights glowing warmly against the evening sky. Elena's chest tightened as they approached the entrance. Daniel noticed. "We can leave at any point," he said. "Just say the word." She nodded. "Thank you." Inside, conversations paused when they entered. Eyes flicked toward Elena, then toward Daniel, then Lily. Whispers followed. Elena straightened her shoulders. Daniel did not rush her. He matched her pace. Exactly. A woman approached, first polite smile, sharp eyes. "Elena, you brought company." "Yes," Elena said evenly. "This is Daniel, Dot, and Lily." Daniel extended his hand calmly. "Good evening." The woman hesitated, then shook it. "Welcome." As they moved through the room, something unexpected happened. The judgment Elena had prepared herself for never fully arrived. Instead, curiosity replaced it. Then restraint. Then, slowly, respect. Daniel spoke little, but listened well. He asked thoughtful questions. He never exaggerated, never performed. He treated Elena like an equal, not someone seeking approval. Lily charmed people effortlessly, speaking honestly, laughing freely. She held Elena's hand when things felt overwhelming. Dinner was served. Elena found herself breathing more easily than she had in years. Across the table, a relative leaned forward. "You seem different tonight," she said. Elena glanced at Daniel, then answered honestly. "I am." The night unfolded not as a performance, but as a quiet reclamation of dignity. Later, as they stepped outside under the stars, Elena paused. "I didn't think it would feel like this," she said. "I thought I'd just survive it." Daniel smiled gently. "Sometimes surviving is the first step to changing." She nodded, eyes glistening. None of them knew yet that this evening wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something far deeper. Something that would test boundaries, reveal truths, and reshape all of their lives. The drive back from the engagement dinner was quieter than the drive there. Not because anything was wrong, but because something had shifted. Elena sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window as city lights passed by like distant memories. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. For the first time in years, her shoulders were no longer tense. Lily hummed softly in the back seat, half asleep, clutching a small napkin she had colored on during dinner. Daniel noticed the change in Elena. "You held yourself differently tonight," he said gently. Elena smiled, but it was fragile, because I wasn't pretending to be strong alone. I wasn't apologizing for existing. They reached her apartment building. Daniel parked and helped Lily out of the car. Elena lingered near the entrance, hesitating as if the night might dissolve the moment she stepped inside. I know our agreement, she said quietly. One day. No expectations, Daniel nodded. That hasn't changed. She exhaled, still. Thank you. Tonight gave me something back, something I thought I'd lost. Lily looked up at her. You smiled more, she said simply. Elena laughed softly. You noticed. I notice everything, Lily replied proudly. That night, Elena lay awake longer than usual, not replaying insults or regrets but replaying moments of calm, respect. The way Daniel had stood beside her without needing to prove anything. The way Lily had treated her like someone who belonged. The next morning, reality returned quickly. Elena's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from relatives, some polite, some intrusive, some suddenly interested. She ignored them all. Instead, she made a decision she had avoided for years. She walked into a small legal office near her apartment and asked about reopening a case she had once abandoned. A dispute over family property she had been pressured to walk away from. For the first time, she didn't feel small doing it. Days passed. Elena and Daniel didn't speak much. They had agreed not to blur lines. Still, occasionally, she would find herself smiling at her phone, wondering how Lily was doing, wondering if Daniel ever thought about that night the way she did. One afternoon, while leaving work, Elena saw Daniel waiting near the cafe where they first met. Lily sat beside him, swinging her legs. Her heart skipped. I hope this isn't napper. Ro Prieto, Daniel said as she approached. Lily wanted to see you. I missed you, Lily said honestly. Elena crouched down, surprised by how natural it felt. I missed you too. Daniel hesitated. I wanted to check in. That's all. Elena nodded. I'm glad you did. They sat together, this time not as strangers. Not as an arrangement, but as people who had shared something real. Elena told him about the legal steps she had taken. Daniel listened carefully. That takes courage, he said. She shook her head. It took one night of not feeling invisible. Something unspoken settled between them. But life has a way of testing fragile beginnings. A week later, Elena received a letter that made her hands shake. A challenge, a threat, a reminder that standing up would come at a cost. And at the same time, Daniel faced his own storm, an unexpected complication tied to his past, something that could affect Lily's stability. Both of them were about to learn that kindness can open doors, but staying kind when things get hard is the real test. And the question that lingered between them was no longer about pretending. It was about whether they were strong enough to face what came next together. The letter sat unopened on Elena's kitchen table for hours. She knew what it meant before she read a single word. The return address alone carried years of pressure, silence, and unspoken control. When she finally opened it, her hands trembled. It was a formal notice. Her relatives were contesting her legal claim aggressively. They accused her of manipulation, of suddenly changing because she had support now. They questioned her character, her independence, even her mental stability. Elena felt the old fear rise in her chest, the familiar voice telling her to stop, to step back, to accept her place. But something was different this time. She didn't cry. Instead, she folded the letter carefully and placed it in her bag. Then she picked up her phone and did something she would never have dared before. She called Daniel. I'm sorry to bother you, she said when he answered. I needed to hear a calm voice. You're not bothering me, Daniel replied immediately. What happened? She explained everything, not dramatically, not as a victim, just honestly. Daniel listened in silence. They're afraid, he said finally. Not of you losing, but of you standing. Elena closed her eyes. What if I can't handle this? Daniel's voice was steady. You already are. That same week, Daniel faced his own challenge. A notice arrived from his employer due to restructuring. His position was being reviewed. Stability, though, one thing he had built his life around for Lily. He didn't tell Elena at first. He didn't want to add to her burden. But Lily noticed. "You're quiet," she said one evening as they ate dinner. Daniel smiled softly. "Just thinking." "Thinking feels heavy," Lily replied. That night, Daniel realized something important. He had spent years protecting Lily from uncertainty, believing strength meant silence. But strength, he was learning, could also mean honesty. The next time he saw Elena, he told her everything. She didn't panic. She didn't offer empty reassurance. She simply said, "Then we'll both walk through this honestly." They didn't define what we meant. They didn't promise anything. But they began to show up for each other in small, deliberate ways. Elena attended legal meetings with her head held high. Daniel helped her prepare questions. She won small victorious procedural, not final but enough to keep going. Daniel applied for new opportunities, quietly. Elena reviewed his resume late one night, pointing out strengths he had learned to overlook. Lily became the calm center between them. She drew pictures of three figures standing together, not holding hands, not labeled just present. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Elena broke down for the first time. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of losing, of believing I deserve more." Daniel didn't try to fix it. He sat beside her and said, "Believing that is the hardest part." Weeks later, the legal confrontation reached its peak. Elena stood in a sterile conference room, facing people who had once made her feel small. This time, she didn't shrink. She spoke clearly, confidently, without apology. When it ended, no verdict was announced. Yet but something had already changed. She walked out lighter. Outside, Daniel and Lily were waiting. "You did it," Lily said proudly. Elena smiled. "I showed up." And that was when Elena realized something profound. She hadn't asked Daniel to pretend anymore. She had asked him to witness her becoming herself. And soon, very soon, their choices would force them to answer one final question. Was this connection only born from circumstance? Or was it something worth choosing? Even when the pretending was over, the final meeting was scheduled for a quiet Monday morning. No dramatic courtroom, no raised voice. Zio's dust, a long table, legal documents, and years of unspoken tension waiting to be resolved. Elena arrived early. She sat straight-backed, hands folded calmly in front of her. The woman who once needed someone to stand beside her just to feel worthy was gone. In her place sat someone who understood her value, even if the outcome didn't go her way. Across the room, her relatives avoided eye contact. They no longer looked confident, tonally uncertain. When the discussion ended, the decision was clear. Elena wouldn't receive everything she was owed, but she would receive enough. Recognition, a fair settlement, and, most importantly, acknowledgement that she had never been wrong for standing alone. As she stepped outside, the spring air felt lighter. Daniel and Lily were waiting near the steps. "You look peaceful," Daniel said. "I am," Elena replied, "no matter what happens next." That same afternoon, Daniel received his own answer. One of the companies he had applied to called back not with sympathy, but with respect. They valued his experience, his steadiness, his honesty. The position wasn't flashy, but it was secure. For the first time in weeks, Daniel allowed himself to breathe fully. That evening, they met at the cafe where everything had begun. Same tables, same quiet hum, but nothing else was the same. Lily sat between them, coloring again. This time, she drew three figures standing under a bright sky. Daniel watched Elena carefully. "Do you remember what you asked me that day?" Elena smiled. "I asked you to pretend." Daniel nodded. "And somewhere along the way, we stopped. Silence. Settled, not awkward, not heavy. Just honest. I don't need you to stand beside me anymore," Elena said softly. "I can stand on my own now." Daniel met her eyes. "I know." Lily looked up. "Then why are you still sitting together?" Elena laughed quietly. Daniel smiled, because Daniel said, "Sometimes you choose to stand with someone not because you have to, but because you want to." Elena felt emotion rise. Not overwhelming, but steady. "I don't want promises," she said. "I don't want to rush anything." "Neither do I," Daniel replied. "I just want to be present." Honestly, that night, They didn't define what they were becoming. They walked slowly through the city, Lily between them, her small hand holding each of theirs. No labels, no performances. Just three people, choosing kindness, clarity, and courage. Weeks turned into months. Alina began speaking at small community gatherings not as a victim, but as someone who had reclaimed her voice. She talked about dignity, about asking for help without shame, about how one brave question can change a life. Daniel settled into his new role, bringing the same quiet integrity he always had. Lily flourished, surrounded by stability, warmth, and examples of emotional honesty. One afternoon, Elena received a message from a woman she barely knew. "I heard your story." It read, "I've been afraid to ask for help, but I think I will now." Elena stared at the screen for a long moment, then smiled. That night, she wrote in her journal, "I asked someone to pretend so I wouldn't feel alone. Instead, I learned how to stop pretending myself." On the anniversary of the day they met, they returned to the cafe. Same corner table. Daniel raised his cup. Two questions that take courage. Elena lifted hers. Two answers that change everything. Lily clinked her juice glass against theirs. And two, being kind. Outside, the city moved on as it always had. But inside that cafe, something quiet and powerful had been proven. Sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is ask, and sometimes, the most life-changing thing another person can do is say yes.